Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
What?
Oh!
What is it?
One of my favorite shows. I love that show.
TGIF.
Good morning, everyone. Friday, finally, the weekend is here.
It is?
Oh, well, not here yet, but it's almost here.
Close enough.
I don't know, in that case.
Who's ready to party?
Let's get this party started.
It's showtime.
Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Friday morning. The games just keep coming. As expected, there's no way Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final was going to match Game 4 of the NBA Finals. That was just too weird and crazy. 36 hours ago at Madison Square Garden. But Carolina did get the win, and the games just keep coming. They're up 3-2. We've got the World Cup underway yesterday. The U.S. and Canada, the other two hosts, along with Mexico, will open up today. U.S. tonight at 7 o'clock. The NBA is back at it tomorrow night with Game 5 in San Antonio. The NHL is back Sunday night. You see a pattern here. It's just games, one game after another. Keep them coming. Just keep them coming. As far as last night's hockey game, Carolina at home, it feels like they're the better team, and they should be the better team, although it's been a wild and crazy series, so it hasn't necessarily played out that way at 2-2. It's been pretty even. But after the Golden Knights got the first goal on the power play, Carolina scored 4 in a row, and they end up winning 4-2. And Vegas tried to rally. They got the second goal late. They were on a they had like 4 or 5 minutes left. They hit the post, about 4 minutes left, I think, trying to get it to 4-3 and give themselves a chance, but hit the post and it stayed out, and that was it, and Carolina wins 4-2. So they're up 3-2 now, and they'll be back at it with Game 6 in Vegas Sunday night. As far as the basketball, we spent a little time on this yesterday, but, New York fans throwing an egg at Wembanyama, and he just takes it and just keeps walking. I suspect they get a bounce-back game at home. They've already lost 2 home games. I wouldn't think they lose 3 in a row at home. They win, and then it feels like it all comes down to Game 6. If New York wins at home, they celebrate at home in front of their fans. It's awesome. It's a great scene, and they got their first title in more than half a century, which New York kind of bugs me as someone who grew up on the western side of the country. But the truth is, the star player, I don't see how you don't root for Jalen Brunson. We usually like smaller guys, and he left Dallas and bet on himself. And, he's I think he's a pretty easy guy to like. And I know he's an easy guy to like. I like Karl Anthony Towns. I really like Mike Brown, too. I've seen that guy, be under a ton of pressure in New York, be under a ton of pressure when he had LeBron in Cleveland. Go to Sacramento, which, if you want to be a head coach, I guess you have to take the job, but yikes, what a bad job. And get run there unfairly, but that's how it always happens in Sacramento. So, yeah, I think, if they were in any other town, it'd be really easy to like them. But it's New York, and New York just creates a visceral reaction. You love it or you hate it. They're so big. They're so loud. They're so in your face. Not all the national media, but a lot of the national media is openly rooting for them. This is the weirdest thing. So we'll see how that plays out. And then we got the World Cup tonight. And, the U.S. should win their group. U.S. has been to the round of 16 4 times in the last 6 cups. And the only 2 times they've missed, well, one they didn't qualify, and the other time it was in Europe. When the cup goes to Europe, Europe is basically the size of the United States. And the European countries are all basically the size of 1 or 2 states. So they're basically playing at home. They don't have to travel that far. There's not that much change in time zones or a change in climate, and it's close enough their fans can get there. So they tend to overperform, and that squeezes out other teams like the United States. So I think the U.S. is at a point where they are one of the top 16 teams in the world. They've only been in the quarterfinals 1 time in the last, 60 years. And that was in 2002 when it was in Asia, Japan and South Korea hosted, and the U.S. beat Mexico in round of 16. Usually you do better when you're at home. And you ride that energy. France and England famously rode it to titles. Germany rode it to the semifinals, as did South Korea. And so you're expected to make, if you're not winning it, you're expected to make a deep run when you're hosting. And that usually holds form, not always, but usually. And so in this case, I think the United States, getting back to the 16, that's kind of same old, same old. If they're in the round of 16 for the fifth time in the last 7 games, that's kind of been the standard. And you got to do better at home. So the goal has to be quarterfinals. Now, if they can do better than that, great. But they need to get to the quarterfinals. They're at home. They need to go further. And, they haven't looked great in the run-up. They did look better in their last 2 tune-ups here. This group has several teams that are decent, and it wouldn't be a surprise if any of them advanced. And, the top 2 advance, plus several third-place teams are going to advance. So it's pretty generous here with a 48-team tournament. The U.S. has to not only get out of the group, they need to win it so that they get a fairly easy matchup in the round of 32. And then that puts them in the 16 with a tough game, and we see if they can go further than they normally do. That would be the plan, and the plan involves winning tonight, 7 o'clock on Big Fox. All right, DJ and PK, we got to take a break with all the basketball, the hockey, and the soccer, the games coming one after another. Stay with us. Coming up, we've got more ahead here. Brian Geltzeiler talking hoops. Matt Brown, really good interview with Matt Brown. We talked with him yesterday. A lot of takes on Texas Tech, and if Texas Tech isn't the team in the Big 12, who is? And how is this going to play out with Texas Tech, with a guy who's gambled dozens and dozens and dozens of time, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and he's only going to sit for 2 games. We'll talk with Matt Brown next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined by Matt Brown, founder and publisher of the Extra Points newsletter covering college football. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks for coming on. We've had you on before. We follow the stuff you do. We see all the stuff on social media, people referencing stuff you do. We probably have about 100 different things we could ask you about. We could keep you here the rest of the show. But if we don't ask you about Texas Tech right out of the gate, we are completely losing the plot. What did you think initially when you heard the court decision? Were you just absolutely flabbergasted? Or were you more shocked when you heard how hard Texas Tech people are defending it?
It's a little of all of the above. So when I heard about this, I was at NACDA, which is this gigantic conference of athletic directors and people that work in college sports, and this huge industry gathering. And there's loads of people who work in the Big 12 and across college sports at this event. And I could see, like, with my own eyes and ears, people who are not prone to profanity or who are not prone to anger being more viscerally upset about this decision than anything I can remember in my career. Like, more than Michigan sign stealing, more than any of the other specific athletic scandals. I mean, I'm putting Baylor and Penn State aside as something completely different, but a lot of legitimate fury about this. I am a little surprised to see how quickly and how publicly institutions like Nebraska and Georgia and potentially the Big Ten and SEC are saying, we don't want to play these guys anymore. But that isn't something that's really happened over the last couple of decades. But the overwhelming sense that I got from talking to ADs about this over the last 2 days, which is a lot of what I've been doing, is I cannot believe that a judge ruled this, and I cannot believe even more that Texas Tech thinks it's okay. If this is not the line that we can all agree on, then clearly one does not exist.
Oh, come on, Matt. It's not like they murdered anybody.
You know, that line of whataboutism was not effective when I would give that to youth ecclesiastical leadership or my parents when I was a teenager. And I think when you're pulling that out, it is a sign that you really did do something wrong. That's something that you might expect from a congressman who's been caught cheating on a spouse, or not some kind of principled defensive behavior. I think that is ridiculous, and quite frankly, somebody who works in higher education should know better.
A lot of people would like a way out right now. What is the easiest way out, or forget easy way out, embrace the more difficult hard way out? Oh, what do you think?
There are no easy ways, right? And there's no easy ways, I think, about any of these existential questions that we've been talking about in college sports these last couple of years. If there were easy ways, we definitely would have done them now. One of the hard ways is the Big 12 Conference Office and Big 12 presidents and ADs have to get together and decide what kind of legal exposure are we comfortable with, knowing that there's a billionaire with lots of time on his hands on the other side of the table to try to enforce something. The NCAA may be barred from by a court or a legal order from saying the guy can't play, but that doesn't mean the Big 12 can't say that, or the university can't say that. And so that's one potential angle here. But if you throw that out the door, there aren't any easy solutions. And mass collective action could very well be brought with other lawsuits. I know the popular talking point right now is like, well, if we had just passed this Protect College Sports Act, none of this would be happening because the NCAA would have the authority to be able to make this ban and there'd be no problems. I have talked to some attorneys that work in this world and a congressional staffer, and there's some doubt even about that because this is about a private contract, not necessarily about NCAA regulatory rights. I really don't think there's an easy way out of all of this beyond somehow the hearts of man changing and realizing, maybe I shouldn't be betting 900 times a day on professional sports or on the teams that I'm involved with.
Yeah, for sure. If we extrapolate in terms of this kid actually playing, what does that mean? What would open the door, sort of Pandora box for training now, or it's not training, gambling, I should say, going forward? Because where do you draw the line?
I legitimately, I think there is no line so long as you are financially prepared and have a jurisdiction to sue over it, right? I saw one of the Big 12 football coaches, I think a little bit facetiously saying, well, we're going to have to bring in some guys from Vegas and teach our guys how to gamble, and we'll kind of decide as a collective when we're going to play hard or not so we can maximize the spread because it's my job to prepare our athletes and help them. That, I think it's a little ridiculous. But what this will show is that any rule, meaning as long as you're not breaking federal law, is not really able to be enforced. There are lots of practical reasons why betting on your team or betting on college football, if you are a college football player, is very stupid and psychologically could mess with your performance, but not any real penalty, again, so long as you don't commit wire fraud. I don't know how widespread athlete behavior would be for this, but what really worries me, and I've said this in Extra Points, and I've said this on the air, and I know this is not a super controversial take in this market, but I am legitimately way more worried about gambling as an existential threat to college football than I am about anything about budgets, NIL, player compensation, labor classification, or the law. Because as soon as a meaningful number of fans no longer feel like every game is on the up and up, there's no more industry. And everything else can be difficult and challenging, but there are solutions to it. If people don't trust the product, you're back to boxing, which has been mostly irrelevant in mainstream American culture now for the last 70 years.
I wonder, and I don't think it's likely, but I wonder if there is somebody with a longer range vision in Sorsby's camp. I mean, he wants to play this year and get the $5 million. He probably, like every other college player, wants to play in the NFL. The NFL has to be watching this hubbub and think, oh, we are going to draw a line when he comes to us. We're not getting sucked into this. And they've shown that because they've got the collective bargaining agreement and the antitrust stuff,
sure,
they can and have suspended people before. If you're playing the long game for the NFL, if you think you're that good, and there's probably a question about whether he's that good or not, but you could go to the NFL right now and say, hey, I'm thinking about not playing. This is too much. What's the deal? Have his lawyer set up. You're going to suspend him for a year. We'll just take it. We'll say all the right things and make you look good. He's going to have to sit out at some point anyway, and it might set him up better in the NFL. And NFL teams might think, oh, well, the kid's really growing up here and realizes he has a problem. I need to focus on myself for the next year. Yeah, I've got the legal right to do this, and I have a hard time believing after going all the trouble of doing this that they'll do anything other than try to play. But I do think the NFL's waiting, and they're going to drop the hammer.
Yeah, I think the argument that you're making here, I think could have very plausibly made sense 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that the deadline to file for the supplemental draft and whether we're going to have one or not is already passed. It would have been plausible to say, I'm going to take the year off, I'm going to work out, I'm going to stay in the hospital, and I'm going to see if the Browns will trade a third-round pick in the supplemental draft to take me, and I'll prepare that way. The cynical answer, I think, is, there's going to be concerns about the NFL, but we've seen a lot of people in the NFL who have done way worse things than this get picked highly and given extensions and given leeway. The question is how good you are. And I actually do think there is something to the idea that even if Sorsby is a top 8 NFL quarterback prospect in his class, maybe higher, that the psychological toll of all of this and then the enormous pressure and bullseye that's going to be on his back whenever he plays could damage his stock significantly. Because it's one thing to say, to get drafted in a hypothetical potential. But then if your last year of college tape is bad, if Texas Tech with their schedule, which is certainly not very strong, performs worse than they did last year, then you're looking at I made $5 million this year, and now I'm a 5th round pick, and I'm on the Buccaneers or something. I don't have much of a career. That's the gamble. $5 million is a lot of money to turn down, though, especially given how much you might have lost in gambling.
Cody Campbell, the Texas Tech billionaire booster, chairman of the regions and all that stuff, he views himself as sort of a statesman in terms of reforming college athletics and has access to people that most folks don't have. But through this, I think it's damaging his reputation and, most importantly, his credibility. What do you think?
Unquestionably, right? Like this is not a secret, and I'm saying this as someone who's covered the political developments of the Protect College Sports Act pretty closely. I've talked to a lot of staffers on the Republican and Democratic side preparing that bill. Campbell's influence was massive. I mean, I'm not saying he wrote the thing, but he was his voice was recognized more than anybody else's. And because he has more money than most of these senators to put out television ads and to lobby, he is enormously connected with these college reform efforts. Ones that I think, if they happen, will disproportionately benefit schools like Texas Tech. And there was a time when I think you could claim, I may be in favor of Texas Tech, but I'm not as conflicted as the Big Ten or the SEC or some of these other lawmakers. I can't be bought. Whatever kind of credibility you want to have as a statesman goes out the door when you show up on Dan Dakich's show and try to insinuate that the college football world is angry because they want to keep Texas Tech down and that they would somehow excuse this behavior from LSU. Like, that's the kind of stuff that you would expect to see on one of the bad 247 message boards.
Yeah, it's fan stuff.
This is not something that you expect from a guy who's trying to do something very difficult,
right? Which
is thread a complicated bill through one of the most politically divided times since the Civil War, and to get 60 votes. I think it'll be easier for someone to look and say, you know what, this guy can go to hell, and ignore it because of the stuff that he's doing here. So one of the difficult things about being a billionaire in this country is that no one is around you to put their arm around you and say, I love you. You need to log off.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. He refuses to log off.
Yeah, he just comes across as a fanboy.
And I know a lot of stuff, things can change quickly in sports. But right now, I just get the feeling like, forget influence. I don't think anybody wants to be in a room with him. I mean, I'm talking other presidents, other ADs. I think it goes back to what you said earlier about that visceral reaction people had. People who don't swear are swearing. People who don't get loud, get loud. People who don't get angry. I don't even think they want to be in a room with him. I think the influence is gone.
Yeah, it's the money in this isn't a partisan statement, right? But like if you have enough money in politics, people who really don't like you will find a way to swallow their pride and show up for a picture or a dinner. But the last 48 hours have not crowned him, and for that matter, I think the university in glory. You look at what Kirby Hocutt put out as his official statement. He's the athletic director, and it's like, I recognize that people feel really conflicted about this. It's difficult. We want to support this young man. He needs structure, trying to be kind of more high-minded and professional. And then you got your football coach saying, I didn't kill anybody. And then you've got your booster, regent / owner saying, like, y'all are just haters. I'll see you in court. It kind of undermines any kind of high-minded argument that they're trying to make,
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think if the Big 12 can come up with some form of suspension that is certainly stiffer and more penalized than 2 games that they'll win if I'm quarterback, that if they can do that, and then Texas Tech continues to fight it, which is what they're basically saying, that the public then is going to view this as, well, we are trying to win football games at all costs, and whatever the crap you do, we're not going to let you do it, because the essence isn't to help a young man, it's to win football games. And their message then becomes worse and worse the longer this goes, and maybe they might say, my gosh, we are running up against this here. Sorsby, sorry, son. We want to help you, but it's just not worth it, because what's going to do to our rep and our integrity as a football program and a university is going to take a major hit. And we're already buying most of our team. And last year it was just their defense. They literally had guys that were most of the guys were just there for one season. And we had a kid, a producer who served his mission in Lubbock, and he said nobody goes to Lubbock on purpose. They go for reasons, whether you're called there or you're lured there by the money. So the point being, in a roundabout way, is Texas Tech is going to look bad the longer they try to resist efforts to not have this happen.
I'm sure that that's true. I think the cynical answer here, though, is we have a lot of years of data to show that a lot of institutions are willing to make that gamble and say, so what? The public gets mad at them, and then they'll either eventually find something else to be mad at, or it doesn't matter because the banner hangs.
Right, but this is gambling, though. This is the one sacred cow that you cannot violate.
Yeah, well, that would be what every athletic director in this conference thinks, and many coaches, and We'll see. I think many other institutions would have reached the exact same conclusion that you just described there. Texas as a whole is different. If there's one thing generational Texans really do not like, it is being told what to do by somebody who is not in Texas. Regardless of, even if it's like, hey, go brush your teeth. Like, no, screw you. I don't want my teeth rot out. Go Texas. There's a little bit of that. A little bit of that here, too. And they think that they have an opportunity to not only win a championship, but potentially put themselves in position to be in a Super League, right? That if you don't win now, you're risking existential harm because, like you said, you don't go to Lubbock on purpose. West Texas is beautiful, but it's also kind of like Mars. And you're not in this massive television market like other places. I don't agree with that thinking. But if you're already this pot committed, I can understand why somebody associated with that program would just say, screw it. Lord knows that people at LSU have made that calculation before. People at Baylor have made that calculation, Michigan, Ohio State. It's certainly not unique to Texas Tech.
I do wonder, and you make a very good point about Texas and Texas's attitude towards the rest of the world. I got a friend from college living in Dallas now, and I've got a family on my wife's side from there. That's not the first time I've heard something like that said. Yeah. So I totally back you up on that, but I do wonder inside of Texas, and back to your earlier point about there's no one to tell a billionaire to log off. I don't know Texas politics, but running the Board of Regents there, do you answer to the governor or the state legislature who might have ties to Texas or Texas A&M? Is there literally someone who can tell Cody and Texas Tech, hey, knock it off? Or maybe there isn't. Maybe they really are, a country unto themselves out there in West Texas.
I think it's a little bit more the latter. The only exception would be, this is a little bit of an open secret around Washington, that Campbell's dream job is to replace Ted Cruz and win and become the next senator from Texas and be an heir to a new kind of conservative populist lawmaker. And if that is your true biggest goal, then yes, I could see some other people on the other side of the state saying like, hey, man, do you want to make every single Republican mega donor in Dallas hate your guts? Because that's a great way to not win anything. But if that isn't your ultimate goal, if your ultimate goal is just glory to Red Raider Nation, yeah, I don't think the governor, lieutenant governor, the Space Force, and anybody, I don't think it can really make you stand down unless it's the money in Lubbock, and he's got quite a bit of it.
If Texas Tech gets really beaten up, and every time they go on the road, and this is a massive distraction, and somehow they screw this up, who stands to benefit in the Big 12 on the field this year?
Yeah, that is actually a really good question, because both the fun thing about this league and the potentially frustrating thing about this league is the difference between the best team and like the ninth team is way smaller than it is in any other power conference. I would imagine on the field it seems like the general sports writer consensus is that BYU and Utah are going to be or should expect to be in conversation for the 2, 3, 4 spot in this league, and if Texas Tech stumbles, they could be in a position to compete. But if we wanted to sit here, and this is pre-media day and trying to figure out the too deep for everywhere, if you wanted to passionately argue for one of the Arizonas or for a different institution, I guess really anybody other than Cincinnati, I think I would say sure, I'd listen. There's very few teams in this league that I would say, oh, there's no chance that they have a potential to compete, especially after what we saw with Arizona State 2 years ago, when I think there was a good argument like this should be one of the 5 worst teams in the Power 4, and they made the playoff and almost beat Texas.
Matt, we will leave it right there. We appreciate the time and all the energy and passion. Thanks for joining us, and people can check you out. Extra Points newsletter covering college football. He is Matt Brown, the founder and publisher. Thanks, Matt.
Yep, you bet. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
There's Matt Brown. When we come back, one of our favorites, Brian Geltzeiler, with rock-solid takes on the NBA Finals. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PCAT's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Brian Geltzeiler joined us yesterday to talk about the NBA Finals and that wild Game 4 in New York. So some of the time references off as he drops last night almost immediately. But his takes on the game, I thought, just largely just spot on. Just spot on. We saw it the same way. I totally believe the stuff he's about to tell you. Here's Brian Geltzeiler, PK and I.
In terms of a critical analysis of it, where do you start?
Well, all right. So, listen, I thought the Knicks played the worst defensive half of basketball. They maybe played all season. Forget about the playoffs. They maybe played all season. The lack of attention to detail in the first half was galling. The way that their weak side defenders were, leaning into the paint a little too much and not closing out aggressively on the Spurs shooters, they got punished very badly for them. I mean, I actually think Vassell just hit another open three. I mean, they just kept them wide open the entire half. And again, it was all in the name of chipping on Wemby, but that didn't even work well. Like, it was a disgusting display of defense by the New York Knicks in the first half. Whatever they talked about in the locker room, the adjustments they made, number one, they cut off all the Spurs driving lanes. Keep in mind, Spurs 76 points in the first half, 30 points in the second half. Okay, they sealed them on driving lanes, all right, and they closed out on shooters on the weak side. And that took advantage of the Spurs' immaturity, because the number one reason the San Antonio Spurs are down 3-1 in the series, and we can give the Knicks all their flowers, okay? But they also have won 2 games by 1 point apiece that took catastrophic mental errors from the San Antonio Spurs to get the Knicks those wins. The number one reason the San Antonio Spurs are losing the series 3-1 right now is for the volumes of time that they forget that they have Victor Wembanyama on their team on the offensive end of the floor. And you have guys taking 1-pass threes. Champagny had a 3 towards the end of the third quarter. And I tweeted this out at the time, guys. You keep taking those kinds of threes in transition, and it led to a long rebound and an easy Brunson transition layup. You keep taking those kinds of threes, you're going to get the Knicks an engraved invitation to be back in the game. And that is exactly what happened. It was a mental and emotional meltdown for the San Antonio Spurs. A lot of that is on that coaching staff. It really is. And I think Mitch Johnson's done a fantastic job throughout these playoffs. I do not think he did a fantastic job last night in the second half of that game. Misuse of timeouts. I didn't think Harper was in there for enough minutes at certain points in time. Just a gross lack of discipline. Here's the other thing. Okay, they did such a good job in Game 3 of harassing Jalen Brunson and bringing the ball up the floor with Castle and Harper doing that. Can somebody on that side explain to me that you ended up with Vassell and Champagny spending so much time on Brunson in the fourth quarter? And listen, Mike Brown, I give him all the credit in the world, and I thought he was going to do this with either McBride or Alvarado, whoever was playing better. McBride was terrible, so he did it with Alvarado. He actually had an extra ball handler on the floor and sacrificed shooting to be able to help Brunson out getting the ball up the floor if he needed it, and he didn't need it. Here's the other thing. How is OG Anunoby able to get the open looks he's getting when the Knicks played the majority of the fourth quarter with two non-shooters on the floor with Hart and Alvarado? And I know Alvarado did hit a three late. Alvarado was terrific down the stretch of that game. But you can't exploit the Knicks better than that and have two non-shooters and load up on Brunson and Anunoby. I just thought the Spurs, the meltdown emotionally and mentally went from the coaching staff directly to the roster, to the players. And De'Aaron Fox, who's supposed to be the veteran influence, with the mistake of mistakes, not dribbling that ball out. Listen, OG had 3 transition blocks over the last 2 games. He thought he had a good 3 steps ahead of him. Just the fact that OG was even in the backcourt with him would have indicated dribble the ball out and make him chase you. He could have, listen, if he got away from Anunoby, he could have killed the entire rest of the clock, and the Spurs win that game. So it was a variety of things, but that's kind of my synopsis, boys.
Sure.
I thought it was brilliant. And you always think that smart people, whenever you identify someone, oh, that person's really smart, you can always go back and, well, that's because they agree with you. And I agree with everything you just said. You just checked out so many boxes. PK and I were looking at each other and nodding like, yep, we've talked about that this morning. Yep. I thought that whoever lost, with about 2 minutes to go, and I think it was right after an atrocious turnover by Fox, just floating the ball back into the middle of the court at midcourt, which I did in the 9th grade and got pulled from the game for. Yep. And then Hart blew the layup at the other end and didn't make him pay for it. I thought whoever loses this game is going to rue the dozens of blatant mistakes that have been made, and whoever wins will just forget about that and go, whew, got out of there with a W, thank goodness. It was entertaining basketball, but it was super sloppy, and both teams had stretches where they were atrocious. And I think you just checked a lot of those boxes for both those teams.
Yeah, and listen, Hart should be thanking his lucky stars, okay?
Yeah.
Josh Hart, you know what? Go buy OG Anunoby an expensive watch, okay? Because when he was able, he took Hart off the griddle. Because you talked about the missed layup. How about the missed box out on Castle, and he had a foul?
Yeah.
And that's not Josh Hart. Josh Hart is one of the best rebounding wings in the league, and that's just a for lack of a better term, a brain fart at the worst possible time. And Castle, second-year player, 21 years old, goes to the free throw line in that atmosphere in Madison Square Garden and drains those 2 free throws like they're nothing. And I want to go back to that point for this reason, guys, because, listen, this series is still 3-1, okay?
Checking another box.
The Knicks have to win a 4th game to win the NBA championship. 2 of those games, I'm going to go back to it again, were 1-point victories. Castle was unflappable in that spot. This whole notion, and you're hearing it from a ton of Knicks fans this morning, that the Knicks somehow permanently broke the Spurs last night. If the Knicks believe that, that is a very naive thing to believe. This is a mentally tough team that is new to this scene, but they are not going to give in. Did you see some clown last night threw an egg and hit Victor Wembanyama in the head walking into his hotel after the game last night? Okay, all right. Did you see how Wembanyama reacted? He didn't. He just kept walking. This team. The Spurs are going to come out angry, determined, focused, and I think they could beat the Knicks by double digits in Game 5, and you come back to the Garden 3-2 for a Game 6. I am not shoveling dirt on the San Antonio Spurs in any way, shape, or form right now. They're too talented. They're too good. They are in this spot in this series because they haven't been smart, and that's something that I think gets improved on. This I can promise you. Today's a travel day. Tomorrow, the Spurs will assemble at their facility, and I can promise you one guy will spend some time talking to that entire team about their mindset and where they need to be going into Game 5, and that'll be Greg Popovich, because he's going to try to impart some of his experience that he's had over the years in these spots to some of these guys, and he will get a captive audience from this group. I don't think the Spurs are mentally weak in spite of blowing that lead last night. I think that they made a mountain of mistakes. They got away from what they were doing well, and they got away from what their strength is, which is running everything through their big guy, no matter what area of the floor. I don't even care if he has it on the perimeter. They just have to run everything through the big guy. They got away from him once again for long stretches. And then when they went back to him, he played nervous. And one guy that we haven't mentioned yet, and we have to mention, is Karl Anthony Towns, who I think I don't even look at his box score. What he is able to do defensively and has done against Wembanyama in this series is another major reason the Knicks are up 3-1. And in the second half last night, he did a super job guarding him. The Spurs had him in foul trouble and did not attack in the second half. The game changes when Towns goes to the bench. Mitchell Robinson hasn't guarded Wembanyama close to as well as Towns has, and Anunoby really can't do it either, although he's doing the best he can. When he does, the Spurs they should have absolutely been pounding the ball to Wembanyama with Towns on him, trying to get Towns over to the bench. The other thing that's important, Karl Towns on that inbound, and give Mike Brown credit for putting his 7-footer on the inbounder. Dylan Harper's pass, that, by the way, if Towns doesn't tip that pass, Castle's got a alley-oop layup to win that game.
Like it, yeah.
The play worked, guys. The stack screen was set. Robinson didn't get through it, and Castle was alone. Towns got a hand on that pass. Because he got a hand on that pass, Hart was able to catch up in the switch. And to me, listen, that kind of stuff I think is absolutely crucial here. The Spurs were that close to being able to win that game, and that's something that they have to take with them to go over to Game 5 in San Antonio on Saturday night.
The one thing that there's several, but one thing that did bother me, and I've seen this repeatedly, is that the teams get casual offensively, right? Obviously, in the first half, they were blistering hot. Good for them. But the reality is that that's hard to sustain for 48 minutes, because if you do, you're going to win by 50, and we rarely see that, right? And so I didn't, and we've talked about this, DJ and I didn't like settling for threes, particularly early in the shot clock in the second half. Find a way then, if it's 29, instead of going to the lead I'm talking about, instead of going to 49, how about go to 39? And I just don't like the settling, I think, is the word I would use for threes the entire game. If you had a stretch, good for you. But maybe look, and I think you alluded to it, get offense running through the big man, get better shot selection. If for no other reason, that's going to take more time off the clock, and the clock is your ally in that point. So I have to criticize the shot selection by and large in the second half, because I didn't think it allowed the Spurs to really put their feet on the Knicks' throat.
No, I think it's a great point. And listen, the concept that I go to and I think about here, and it's not just in NBA basketball. You see this concept on every level. I see it with my son in AAU and high school basketball. The concept of the heat check, guys. The concept of a hot shooter that thinks because he's a hot shooter, he can take whatever shots he wants. Most times, that's not good. That works against a team and against team basketball. The Spurs had several heat check guys that hit a bunch of threes in the first half. Harper, Vassell, Champagny, and they took some bad shots in the second half. That whole concept of the heat check is very, very damaging, and normally happens when you have a big lead, and normally when everybody gets going on a heat check and decides they're going to take bad shots, it invites the losing team back into the game, as it did with the Knicks last night. And that was a big thing. Here's the second thing that it's important to understand also, guys. You know, the art of tempo control has been lost somewhere along the lines here. When you are up in a game like that, part of playing an intellectually smart and winning basketball game is knowing when to run and knowing when to walk. Knowing when to walk the ball up the floor. Knowing when to understand that using 18 to 20 seconds of a shot clock has a net benefit for you in the third quarter of a game that you're up 29 points. Don't start to play fast and loose and feel full of yourself. Humility is so important on a basketball court. One of the reasons I invoked Popovich earlier on, it's Greg Popovich has an old saying about your mentality when you play basketball. He calls it an appropriate level of fear. And I think the Spurs lost they didn't have enough fear. They didn't understand the discipline that they had to continue to play with once shots didn't fall. It was almost like once shots aren't falling. Like it's a classic example, live by the three, die by the three. But here's the thing about the Spurs last night, they didn't have to die by the three. When you have Victor Wembanyama on your team, you don't ever have to die by the three, and they died by the three.
There are people who believe that fatigue has been a major problem for the Spurs, that they played a 7-game conference final that was super intense, while meanwhile the Knicks were blowing through a sweep that looked like it was over at some point during Game 2, and that the Spurs' only win in the NBA Finals so far has come when there were 3 days between games, from Friday to Monday, from Game 2 to 3, and that now it's going to be 3 days till the game on Saturday, 3 days till Tuesday, 3 days till Friday, and that this is going to be a major plus from the Spurs. The facts are what they are. Are you buying that they're going to be able to capitalize on these facts, this schedule, and this bonus rest that the schedule is giving them?
Certainly for Game 5, yes. I think there's something to that. I do. First of all, and I think there's something to that for this reason. I think you could make the case that fatigue cost them Game 1. They ran out of steam down the close of Game 1. Number 2, let's not forget Victor Wembanyama right now is playing more minutes than he's ever played in his entire basketball career. They played him 44 minutes last night, and I'm not faulting Mitch Johnson. It's all hands on deck. This is the NBA Finals. This is the time that you play him and you run him that way. But what's happened to him, which is interesting, is the energy he has to expend guarding Karl Anthony Towns makes him a less effective help defender. And that's a really important factor here. And that's why Knicks fans went crazy over what happened a minute into the game where Mitch Johnson, which I thought was an insane replay, but give him credit, it worked. But he challenged a call, a Towns-Wembanyama call. That really could have gone either way. I don't think the refs got it so terribly wrong in the way Knicks fans. I actually thought the first foul on Towns was a worse call, was a touch foul that didn't need to be called on the first possession of the game. That one could have gone either way. But the important point in all that is what it takes out of Wemby to have to guard Towns on the perimeter and then be what I like to call Brunson's mid-range shadow. He was SGA's mid-range shadow in the OKC series, but he's so helpful to the guy on the ball because he doesn't have to get that close to be a presence on guys like Brunson and SGA in the mid-range. And that, to me, has been the single reason that Brunson has had some struggles in this series. And listen, he was excellent the second half last night. There's no two ways about it. But he's played more bad quarters than good in this series, and that's been a big reason for it. But I also think having Wembanyama have to do all of that does wear him down a little bit. The extra day of rest, I think is huge for Wemby right now when he's in uncharted territory in terms of the amount of minutes that he's had to play. And listen, the Knicks look fresh as a daisy right now. Why do they look fresh as a daisy? They had the benefit of 2 8-game vacations in the middle of the playoffs. And by the way, it's not a gift, boys. They earned it. They swept teams. They had their foot on teams' throats, and they pressed down and finished them off. They earned that stuff, and you earn that stuff because it's a net benefit now at this stage of the playoffs. So I do think, yes, I think the fatigue thing becomes a little more equalized with the extra day off. I mean, there is something to that. And I will tell you guys this, and I know Knicks fans are going to think I'm insane. I'd be surprised if the Spurs don't win by double digits on Saturday night. I really do, and I think we're coming back for Tuesday night Game 6 at Madison Square Garden.
I'll throw a Jazz question at you. Bill Simmons got that Boston connection with the Angels in Boston, obviously, with their history there. And he's talking about he thinks they're going to draft Boozer. What do you think?
So, listen, on one hand, I think the Jazz should not worry about what position to draft and just draft the best player possible. Here's the one thing that I take pause at. And Cameron Boozer is going to be an excellent NBA player. And I think it's almost a lazy comparison to compare him to his father because his father never had the perimeter game that he has, was never the passer or the ball handler that Cam Boozer is. Here's my issue with taking Cam Boozer in that spot. You're leaving 2 superior athletes on the board. And you're seeing it now, guys. It's as good as a guy like Jalen Brunson is, and he's incredible. OG Anunoby showed you what a high-end premium athlete could do last night in a big spot, okay? And that was an incredibly athletic play. Here's what I'm saying to you. If you have a guy that combines the skill and athleticism, to me, that's always going to be more valuable and have more upside than getting a guy that has the skill level. And don't get me wrong, Boozer's not a bad athlete. He's a very good athlete. But Devonta, who probably won't be there, Caleb Wilson, Darren Peterson, they're all better athletes. They all are. And that's my concern there. That's my one concern with taking Boozer. Do I think Boozer's going to be a very good NBA player? I do. Do I think Boozer's going to be a superstar? Probably not. Do I think any one of those other 3 guys, and maybe 2 of those other 3 guys, could be superstars? I do. I believe that. And that's where I think that maybe if they do that, they're going to make a mistake. But here's the other thing I'm going to say regarding what Simmons had to say about that. And I listen to every Simmons podcast. I'm an enormous Bill Simmons fan, as you guys know. We're getting to the draft. So today is the 11th. The draft's in 12 days. All right, we're very close to getting to Danny Ainge lying time. Okay, where Danny Ainge will not tell the truth as you get closer. Danny will float rumors out there of guys he's interested in to see who may come up behind him and say, hey, we want that guy. Maybe we'll give you something for him. Danny is the master, okay, of floating smoke screens this time of year. No one is better. Okay, he pulled it with Tatum. He bluffed that whole draft and ended up getting an extra pick and trading out of number 1 when he was with Boston and got Tatum at 3. Danny's brilliant this time of year. So what I would say about all the boozer buzz, and I'm hearing it too, take it with a grain of salt. And I understand that Danny's not the only decision maker there, but Austin, he comes from Danny's loins, boys, okay? And he's got the same type of instincts on what he's going to do, Austin Ainge. So I would caution that not to buy too far into the boozer narrative. There's a big groundswell of boozer support league-wide to be a top 2 pick in this draft. I think Danny's leaning into it a little bit to see if potentially it can net the Jazz some extra assets.
You may have crossed paths with Walt Perrin when he was working in New York. He was in Utah working for Kevin O'Connor. Did a lot of scouting. We rarely saw him during the season, but they would always run him out to do the media stuff leading up to the draft. And every time they do a workout, Kevin O'Connor would make the players available and make Walt available, even if Kevin wasn't. And Walt would ask all the time about the draft and reports, and he would just look at him. Liars Club is in session. He wouldn't wait for 2 weeks. He was
right.
like 5 weeks before the draft. Liars Club is in session. What you hear might be true, but it might not be anywhere near the truth.
Who in their right mind is leaking the truth right now as you get this close to the draft, especially a draft where these top 4 picks are so incredibly valuable because of the players that are going to be taken. And listen, Danny Ainge, as far as the rest of these team presidents and general managers are concerned, Danny Ainge wrote that book. He did. He's the master of it. So I would, again, take all of it with a grain of salt. I'd even take it with a grain of salt at the top of the draft. I mean, you're hearing a lot of Wizards buzz that Devonta's going to be the guy. And maybe he is, and maybe he isn't. We have to see kind of what shakes out there, too. But I think you're getting a lot. There's definitely a lot of false information that's being floated in the thought of maybe motivating some teams to try to look to see to offer something. One thing I will say about this draft, guys, you may see some movement within the top 4 in terms of trading. No one is trading out of the top 4 of this draft. It will not happen.
I don't think I can find a draft where the top 4 guys, if you redrafted, were the top 4 guys. But is that going to happen this time? Are they really? There are no busts in the top 4? These 4 are all legit?
I don't think you're going to get a bust in this top 4. I know what people are saying about Darren Peterson. The people that are saying what they're saying about Darren Peterson haven't watched him long enough. Even with what happened in Kansas this year, he averaged over 20 points a game. He's as smooth a guard as we've seen come into this league since Kobe Bryant. And he can pass, he can shoot, he can guard. And I tell you, and I've told you guys this before, my partner Sam Mitchell coached him 3 different summers in AAU, knows Darren and his family very well. He will tell you straight out there is zero concern regarding Darren Peterson's competitive spirit. I know we heard the whole creatine thing and the cramping, and I think there was some of that was true. I think maybe it was dramatized a little bit, but I also think that he got an agent in his ear, and which let him know that this is a tune-up for much bigger money coming in the NBA, and you don't want to take any risk to knock you from the ability to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft. And I think that crept into his mentality too much. Listen, I didn't like that in the respect that Kansas paid plenty of money for him too. So, like, he owed them something there as well. My point being is I do think that so much of this with Peterson is overblown, and I think you can end up in a scenario where, these 4 guys all end up within 5 years being on one of the top 3 All-NBA teams. I think that there's all 4 of them have the potential to be that good.
He's Brian Geltzeiler. You hear him on SiriusXM NBA Radio, and you see him on NBAtv. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Always, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
All right, there's Brian Geltzeiler. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Summer is all about freedom, fun, and growing up. And between the ages of 9 and 13, kids are starting to form their views about alcohol. With more independence, their still developing brains need more guidance and support than ever. That's why summer is the perfect time to stay connected and plan fun, safe family activities together. Research shows kids who spend quality time with their parents doing what they enjoy are less likely to drink underage. And when kids feel close to you, they're more likely to listen, especially when you set clear expectations. In fact, kids who drink before 15 are far more likely to struggle with alcohol later. This summer, create a no-bummer summer with fun, alcohol-free activities for your kids. Go to summer.parentsempowered.org to take a quick quiz and discover ideas tailored to your family. A little time together can make a big difference. For more information and to learn more about how to prevent underage drinking, visit parentsempowered.org.